Can you hear us?
He's still connecting.
I see him.
There he is.
We are live.
I think I got it.
You got it. Very good. Welcome.
Welcome.
Okay. We're all set. It's 9:07.
We are live.
We are live. We can call the meeting to order. This is the Leelanau County Park and Rec Commission, Myles Kimmerly Park Committee meeting. This is our meeting, first of the year. And I'll mention to Rick that Lana, one of your colleagues that just joined the committee, has decided not to stay on the committee for personal reasons. And we have a group of 3 of us now, and Scott, and we'll go from there. The Pledge of Allegiance is the first thing, and since we're Zooming and we have so much trouble, I'd like to just forgo that if that's okay. That's acceptable, Laura?
If you wish to do so.
Okay, I'll choose to do that. I don't have to vote on that or anything?
No, you can just say that.
Okay, very good. Let's have a roll call.
Mr. Christensen,
Present.
Mr. Frericks,
Yes, here.
Mr. Robbins,
Here.
Ms. Schaub is absent excused. We have 1 guest.
I'll move to approve the agenda as presented.
Okay, correct. Hearing none, we'll proceed to public comment.
Well, did you vote on that?
Oh, we have to approve the minutes. Okay, sorry, didn't know.
Well, no, we're on the agenda, and Steve, you voted, your motion is to approve the agenda as presented, right?
Right.
Exactly.
And the second?
Second.
Okay.
So we cannot raise our hands. We have to actually voice vote on that.
Well, if we see all of you with your hands up, that's good.
All in favor of the agenda? Very good. Agenda approved. Now for public comment, please.
The number to call in for public comment today is 231-256-8109. And we'll give it just a minute.
Operators are standing by.
If anyone calls in, we could probably add it if you want to work with your action items.
Okay, hearing no public comments, we'll continue with action items. Number 1 is just a review of the park, and I'd like to ask Rick, how familiar are you with the park?
Pretty familiar.
You know, the north end and the south end, when we talk about that, the different buildings.
Yeah. I mean, I've been around that park for 50 years.
Okay, so if I ask you about the grub shack, you know what I mean by that sort of thing.
A little bit. I mean, I haven't been in there, but I mean, I drive by there all the
Yeah,
time.
that's close enough. That's good. Okay. You've had everybody's, well, I know Scott and Steve and I have looked at the things that I mentioned to review the 5-year plan, the things pertinent to Myles Kimmerly Park, and especially on page 65 and 66, the goals and action items to be done. To be looked at and considered, I should say, not to be done necessarily. Yeah. Well, you have that in front of you. That's great. Okay. All right. Given that, then maybe we can just go to, can I screen share now, Laurel?
Just a moment. Okay, I've added you, just give it a shot.
Okay, very good. Okay, that's not what I wanted. I get rid of something on here first. Yeah, I got something on here I want to get rid of, sorry. Okay, this just, can everyone see that, please?
Yeah.
Is it close enough for you guys?
Yep.
Scott, you know the park. This is just a diagram of the perimeter of the park. I just want to emphasize that so we know we have part of the park we're going to be talking about is the north section. It's across north of Burdickville Road. The rest of the park is down here, if you can see my purpose. And the disc golf area that we'll talk about is all in the woods back here as part of this Patrick Hobbins Trail. I know that Steve and Scott are familiar with this more than I am. I didn't know the park existed a year ago, Rick, so you probably know more about it than I do even, but you're familiar with all this, I understand, correct? Okay, and this is just an example of what exists on the park right now. And this is an overhead Steve shared with me. It's in your book too. I think it's on, I forget what page it's on, but it shows the soccer field and the baseball fields and whatnot, the main entrance to the park, the garage, and this, it's called the park office on this map. This is where the grub shack is and that we'll be talking about today, along with the disc golf, which is back in this area. So I wanted to show that. And these are the different goals on page 65 and 66, goals and objectives of the 5-year plan people developed before. This is not last year before last, that they came up with 3 separate goals and different things to do. It's kind of wordy. Here's the second page. What I did is I broke it down into a more simplified form so we can look at. And that's the thing we should talk about today, are the loop trails, paved, that we can show a picture of that in a minute. Universal access restrooms, parking increase, and specifically in areas where parking is needed by the playground, by the things that are being utilized. Crosswalks, especially going across the Burdickville Road, kiosks and signage, we're going to talk about that for sure, and picnic shelters upgrade. These are some passive things that they recommended from the 5-year plan that we should think about, and we have to prioritize and say, what do we want to do as a committee this year to recommend and champion and take to our commission to try to get approval to have things done. We obviously have a limited budget, and we can't do everything, obviously. We have to share that budget with 2 other parks, and then it has to go to the Board of Commissioners, and they have to decide based on all their needs, et cetera, et cetera. So we have to think wisely and say, what is the best option to help this park and make it as desirable and usable as possible for the community. These are the 5 kind of passive things. Next slide shows the things that are utilized by the people that use the park, like for golf and disc golf and pickleballs. We don't have any pickleball courts now, but it's popular maybe, and maybe it would be good to have them. Baseball fields to be reconfigured. Stephen can talk about that. And then the play equipment that's in the area. those are the kind of 5 or 10 things to think about and try to maybe jot down and then let's discuss as a group what we feel as a group is the best approach to deal with these and which one is the most important to address today. I'll preface that by saying some of our decision is already made by the fact that the cleanup the cleanup for the disc golf area is underway already. So this can kind of take us back to the agenda. And the short-term issues, the way I look at it when I look at the action things from the plan, and then talking to Steve and Scott, who know this park a lot better than I, are the things listed. The short-term issues are things we can maybe do sooner than later, and that have a big impact on the park, in my opinion. And the one is the log cleanup and the bench and stump cleanup, that sort of thing, which we spend a little time talking about because it's the bid is out there to have it done already. Bids are due by mid-April, and we should kind of decide how extensive we want this to be done, where it should be done, et cetera, et cetera. The trail signs, we'll talk about a little later. The storage shack, that has something that I feel is significant about. I think it's an eyesore when you first come into the park. One of the first things you see is this little shack that's kind of getting dilapidated, and it's like people will think, gee, we're not taking care of our park, in my opinion, anyway. And then the garage office, I'd like to address that later, and road and parking lot grading. These are things that in the short term, in my opinion, we can deal with all of these to a degree, maybe. And then these long-term projects we'll get back to. But I'd like to go back to the 2A, not the branch and the log stump thing, and hear from both Scott and Steve what the status is and what their opinion is on how we should approach this and to what degree at this point.
I'm going to pass it off to Scott. The instructions for the bidders are already delineated, and Scott was involved with that right up with Laurel more than I was. Scott, can you kind of let us know what is in that bid package?
Well, I asked for 4 bids, all in one. One of them was the cleanup just the Pat Robbins Trail. Another was disc golf. The emergency trail that we talked about, we had cut in the very back, the back 40, so to speak. And all of it as one unit. So it's been put out on my bid, and we've already gotten one interested person. So in just a couple days. So.
I've also scheduled this for publication in the local paper for 2 weeks.
Scott, do we have an idea what the total cost of this might run?
No clue. I'm guessing probably 20,000 for everything, but that's only a guess.
For the whole cleanup? With that 20,000, I guess I'm asking to Steve and Laurel, does 20,000, does that come out of the maintenance part of our budget?
You know, I'm not sure. I think that would probably be maintenance, but I guess it could be capital improvement too, because we are improving things. I don't know. It's a good question.
It is, yeah. We'll have to.
I'll find out.
Accounting would be able to tell you for sure.
Yeah, we'd have to run it through accounting and see where we are with that.
I have a question. Go ahead. Were you going to say
I asked
something?
accounting before, on certain items and they've said, well, it doesn't really matter where it comes out of as long as it doesn't exceed your total budget. So I don't think that's a big issue,
Interesting.
but I'll find out.
I have a thought about, I know we want stump removal, but I don't understand why are we interested in stump removal unless they're right in the middle of a path or something? Stumps are good, maybe they just rot out and they go back to nature and
Well, it's not really removal, just grinding them off. So they are in the way. They're safety hazards. The one back trail you can't access at all because of the stumps. So
Good. The main thing is to get all this cleaned up because of the disc golf. Is that correct?
in part, yes, the disc golf is a safety concern. The back trail, we want to get that opened up so we have access to the back property.
Yeah.
For safety and just leisure, I guess, too.
I mean, a safety issue, a liability issue, a lot of reasons why this should be done.
Right.
I will mention one more thing, and that is, I have a friend that's interested in biochar, and they take all these branches and dead wood and stuff, and instead of just burning it up, they take it and they reprocess it into, like, it's not charcoal, but like it's a biochar thing that that farmers put it into their field and bury it, and carbon goes back into the earth, and it's good for nature, et cetera, et cetera. Is that something that we should think about in this process, or is that just going to slow things down?
Oh, it's too late for all of that. The wheels are in motion, so.
I agree. I think so too. And I mentioned that to him, but I did send him the RFP thing, and he might respond to it. I don't know. And if he has some great ideas. I know that the part of the problem is when you do something like that, the transportation of all the branches and to get it to the site and everything is a problem. But they have some on-site things where they burn this and stuff like that. And so someone might approach one of the two of you about that. Anything else to be said about this? Well, it's in motion already, and I support it immensely. I'm sure the rest of us do, but is there any other comments about it?
I don't have any other comments, no.
I'm good.
Our bid intent, I believe, is March 23rd, and bids are due April 8th.
So that'll be a big improvement for the park. Okay. Next
It'll be
item.
huge.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Scott?
Hey, Scott, once they start, how long is it gonna take?
Okay,
He just said it was going to be a huge improvement.
for sure. Okay, next thing is trail signs and map. I mentioned to Scott earlier about this. You had somebody in the government center that does maps and stuff and some signage. Scott, do you have anything on that for us?
I'm gonna get with Rob probably today and see what he can do for us about maps. So I don't know what kind of detail he can give me, but
Well, that'd be great. Here's an example I want to show you of this I took out of Hudic Dunes. Some of the things we could think about. This is just on a wooden sign there. It shows the trail so people don't get lost. It shows certain points where you can park. And Scott had mentioned this before. It says where you can know where the trail's going. I think that's even nice if it's a tough trail. The Patrick Hobbins is so well defined though that that's not an issue. But some other trails in there, I'm sure I tried to find them and I had a little trouble. So I think it'd be great if we had something like this and we had a map in certain places on the trail that people could feel comfortable that they didn't get lost. Not that they will. I don't think it's that big a park, but it could be an issue, I think. I think it's a friendly thing. I didn't know the park at all. And when I first went to it, I tried to find the Patrick Hobbins Trail and I didn't get to the trailhead because, I went across the disc golf and there's other trails that go to the disc golf things and whatnot. And so it's very confusing to me. So I had proposed that when we have a map like something like this, it has an overlay of the disc golf trails superimposed on the walking trails so that there's no confusion about the two and shows where they do overlap in that. So there's not an issue of people getting in each other's way and that sort of thing.
I have a question.
Sure.
Scott, when people do the Patrick Hobbins Trail, I assume they park in the upper parking lot. And then it's kind of an easy trail to get to Patrick Hobbins. But I know Don was saying it wasn't intuitively obvious to him how to get to that trail. I know last week we talked a little bit about tree signs for Veronica Valley. Would that size of sign and post fit this park as far as directions to Patrick Hobbins?
I think it would, like the example that Don put up, I think that's a good idea. The example that Don put up on the board from the Leelanau Conservancy, I think would work real well.
Yeah, anything gives a little more direction. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, and I'd like to lean on Scott for placement. He's real familiar with how people need to get from point A to point B, where to put a sign. So if it's 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, whatever it is, I guess I would lean on Scott for his recommendation for our next committee meeting with possible example of what we do that could move that project along a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's not going to be that expensive, and I think we can squeak that in, and I think it'd be a big improvement. Also, I think at the well, we have a message board at the we'll call it the Grub Shack, and that could be updated a little bit, a better picture of the trail and superimposed again with the disc golf thing on that. So the same guy that does the signage could maybe do that at the same time, something like that. And so you could work on both those, Scott?
I'm hoping so.
Super, super. Okay, the next thing is a storage shack. And we're all familiar with it, even Rick is. But this is, if you look at this diagram here, where I got my cursive, can everybody see that? This is the grub shack. This is the back end of it. If you notice how it's just on some cement blocks, cinder blocks, it looks like it's balanced up. And when I saw that, there's a little snow on the ground and everything. I said, whoa, I don't think I get up on the roof needs a new roof, it needs some siding, it needs a paint job, and maybe it's salvageable. I really don't know. I think Steve and Scott are better equipped to tell us more about that. Question is it cheaper to take it down and start from scratch? And Scott has a plan on what to replace it with, or is it better to renovate this? And I don't have an answer to that. So we need some input from everybody here. Now, Rick, did I hear it right that you used to be on the Park and Rec with Grand Travers?
Yeah, years ago.
Yeah. So you have some expertise here too. So you have to, and when you come on to the commission for the first time, you have ideas that these people haven't thought about, I haven't thought about. So feel free to express things that you think might be important for us here.
Yeah,
And
no,
you know that Grub Shack, I really don't know the history of it. I haven't been up here that long, and I don't know what it's used for except for storage right now. The plan is to replace it, and all of you got a copy of Scott's replacement, I think. I think I got that here.
well, Scott may know, I mean, if we tear it down, replace it,
This is it here.
new permits and everything.
This is the one that it was sent an email. Laurel sent this out from Scott. It's just a cinder block. And it's not to replace the whole shack. It's just to have this portion of it is enclosed, right? And this is all just an overhang, right, Scott?
Correct.
Picnic table. This is cement slab over here. Picnic table's all here. And just the little box here for the electrical panel and the irrigation control thing so we don't have to relocate it. And a bulletin board out here with a good map of the area and maybe a little insert there for people who can take a trail map if they want, something like that. But if that's what we want for this, I think that's great. But I don't have a sense of the utilization of this building or the park. And that's why I rely on Scott again and Steve to help us out here.
Yeah, I was just thinking with that overhang pavilion thing, you can maybe like convert that into a UA porta potties underneath that shelter and get rid of the current shelter that we have for the porta potties. Might be an idea, I don't know.
Is this a good area to have a picnic table?
Yeah, it's fairly good size.
Because I mean, all the play equipment and the thing is over this way more to the west. And the soccer field's over here. What's right out here is, I guess, I don't know. We go back to the other forms in that. Any thoughts about this grub shack? To me, first thing when I went to the park first time, I came in, the first thing I saw, and I was like, ooh, they don't take care of this place. That was honestly my first impression. So and maybe I'm being oversensitive about it. And if I am, say so.
Well, this is an ongoing project. I've found a letter from a couple people that had gone out there and inspected it and thought they could save it, but that was back in 2011, which was before my time. So, you know, this has been going on for over 10 years. Something needs to be done, or it's just going to fall down. No.
Yeah, if it's neglected, it'll fall down. But Steve, you've been with us for a long time. What's your feeling about this?
It's over the 20 years of the commission's life, vacillated between save it and take it down. There was even a time when there was an idea that we should take all of the controls and move them across the entrance drive and get them over to the building where Scott works out of. And that idea, I think, kind of went away as soon as we saw how much it would cost and how complicated it was, and the kinds of problems that we could run into trying to move all those controls. So I think the last iteration of what do we do with this thing surrounds the sketch that you have. In my mind, removing it makes a lot of sense. The framework might be sort of savable, but the siding, the roofing, the windows, the doors, once you start pecking away at something, it's my feeling that you spend more money and it doesn't turn out to be what you want. That's kind of gut level. I don't have numbers to back it up. I guess doing what's in the sketches, I think makes a lot of sense, and whether we can incorporate some of the materials in that enclosed area, I'm not sure. I like it on a slab. I like the slab big. All of the drip edges hit concrete slab and drizzle off. Very easy to maintain. Very practical. to me, it looks like a good investment and could be cheaper than the other route. We're only enclosing a small area. We have an overhang that we can do multiple things with. Not a bad idea, I think, to have the picnic tables under an overhang on that side of the street. You've got a lot of activity over there. You've got porta potties. I would keep them where they are. I put some picnic tables here. Grandma can be here. The soccer's up there. You don't get as much crossing the road. We've got some crossing the entry road, which has been problematic over time. If we have a little bit more seating shade on that side, we'll get a little less crossover and a little safer situation. I like that sketch idea, I guess, is where I'm heading with that.
Any other comments? I just have the thing that we would lose if we tore this down, it's a storage shed for the soccer equipment and that. So we would have to address that a bit, I think. But I think they have their own soccer storage thing. Is that big enough, et cetera, et cetera? And I don't think we shouldn't do it because of that. I just mentioned it. The other thing that comes to mind are these porta potties and the picnic tables too close together. I'm asking, I can't remember where those porta potties quite where they are. They're close to that, but are they too close to the picnic tables? Scott, Steve, Scott?
Yeah, I would think they would want to be moved. I wouldn't want a picnic right next to where they're at.
Yeah. So are those on a slab? Those porta potties?
No,
Oh, they're not. Good. So we can move those easy enough.
yeah,
Sort of easy enough. I mean, so what's the feeling of our group here? Rick, what do you think?
Well, I don't know. Do you live out by there, Don?
Pardon me?
Do you live out by the park?
No, I live in Northport.
Oh, okay. Like I say, I'd like to, when it's possible, maybe even when Scott's out there working. I haven't been in there. I mean, I've been by there, but I haven't been in there in a few years, and I'd like to look at the building. And
Oh, absolutely. I'll meet you there anytime. I'd be happy to.
Rick, I can meet you there at any time too. It doesn't, as long as I'm not plowing snow here.
I mean, I'm leaning towards, with the price of building materials and everything, I think if we can save it, I think we ought to.
Yeah. Well,
If I
that's
can cheaper, then I don't know, if we tear it down, move it, then what are we, do we get permits and change a lot of things, or I don't know.
yeah. Well, that's great. Yeah, I would like to, before we make a final decision as a group, the four of us, let's have you look at it and get some input, and then we'll talk about it next time. We'll meet in a month again and talk about these things. Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, because I don't have a set thing, but I think what Steve said and his plan, to me, if we don't need that building and just to keep the equipment, keep the mechanical stuff where it is and create a little picnic, a slab, I think that'll work out. We have to say, what use do we want it to have? And maybe we want it to have more of a use, maybe it'd be worth more, but I think it's an easy thing to put this thing up. Can't be that expensive. Put a slab down and all that, although it's probably more than I think it is, but whatever.
Yeah, if we save it and that's more economical, I think that's a great idea. And we can always do, on the other side of the street, we've got the pavilion picnic table arrangements covering over a slab, and there's nothing preventing us from doing a couple of those in more ideal locations on the other side of the street, so yeah, I don't have any problem. If that's a more economical thing to do, it does make sense.
Okay. Okay, well, something has to be done because it's just, everybody agrees it's an eyesore, I think. I hope you do anyway. And it's a nuisance in the sense that it's like that one broken window theory. If you have a broken window and you don't repair it, people will think, oh, it's okay to break another window, sort of thing. That's my view of that. Anyway, we'll talk about it next time. Thanks, Rick. The next thing I want to talk about is the garage. That's the garage across the way. And I've been in there with Scott a couple times, and he has an office out there that's not heated, and it's just a little office space. He has a heated area for a workshop out there, small. It's got a little space heater on the wall, which really nice and works well. But as the office part, it's not cold, it's not heated. And if he's out there a lot during the winter, and he needs that office space, it's something he has to speak up about and we have to consider. But the big thing, there's insulation on the roof of this garage and there's mold on it. So it's moldy insulation. And Mike, and I don't know the answer to this, but is that a health hazard and how much of a health hazard is? And that's something that should be addressed sooner than later. And to that from, I don't know who, a county health person or something. I don't know. Have you checked in with anybody on that, Scott, about the insulation?
No, I haven't.
You can see the black on it, and it's just, it's in the paper. And, is it going to go anywhere? Is it an issue? Scott's up and talking, walking, and he's out there a lot. We don't know if it's affecting his health, but it's something we have to look into and think about. We talked about insulating the whole garage, but that's a $4,000 to $6,000 project to just insulate the whole garage. It's probably more in the $6,000 range. I don't know if that's money well spent at this time, if that needs to be there. But I do think if we have insulation that's contaminated, maybe it should be replaced. And if it is, then do you do the whole garage or do you just insulate a little office space for Scott? We have to put a wall up, and I don't know the cost of that. It's something to think about and look into. I'm not sure how much time you spend there, Scott, versus the government center. I'm confused about that. When you're out there, they're far apart in a sense. And when you're out there, are you doing office work out there or just maintenance part?
No, I spend most of my time here in the winter. Yeah. I'm out there occasionally, but I don't spend a lot of time there. But in the fall and in the spring, it does get cold out there, and that the mold on that insulation was a failed attempt by previous people to insulate that. They didn't do it right. So if you turn that heater on, it creates moisture, and that's what gets that insulation wet and creates that problem even more. So I just keep the heat off.
So it's a problem with just replacing the roof insulation wouldn't solve it. There has to be some adjustment in the mechanics of it too.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, they shouldn't have put the paper-backed insulation in there for one, but. So.
Any thoughts from the group on that, Steve?
I guess I'd ask Scott, what do you feel the priority of addressing your area is?
Well, it would be great, but I just don't see it happening for one. I think we should need to do stuff for the public and not for me. I'd rather see something happen in the park than work on the garage. We need to focus efforts other places, I think, so.
One further question. If we were thinking about doing something there, and I'm a little concerned about the mold question that was raised, and I didn't consider that until Don saw it and said something actually, and I've been there enough. I probably could have seen it, but anyway, if there was one thing that we should do, remove and replace the insulation. I don't know what one thing could we look at doing that wouldn't break the bank, that would help your safety?
I don't know, I couldn't answer that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know how much of an issue it is, but I think we should look into it to make sure we're not having him reside in a place that has mold in it like that.
Maybe when,
You
Rick,
know,
when you and Don and Scott are there, you can look at that too, just to kind of get a feel for what that is.
yeah, is there a building inspector that we have in the government, something like that, that would know about that?
I think it'd be better for us to look at it and get an idea of what we want to do to start with.
Okay,
And then,
Yeah, it might be just something as simple as just having the mold analyzed, and if it's the toxic kind, then
Perhaps you should bring your concerns to Chet. That would be my recommendation. Talk to Chet first before you go any further, and he can let you know what your options are. I don't think he was aware there was mold.
Laurel, who should talk to Chet? Scott or myself or Steve or who?
I'm going to show him the notes, and then he will contact you.
Oh, great, thank you.
I don't know, I'm not that concerned with it actually, but, so.
Well, I think it should be looked at or addressed anyway, which we'll do. Thank you. I want to go back 1 second to the storage shack into the garage. There's projects in both of these areas that we can get some volunteer work for, possibly some people that want to do some volunteer work for the park. And I don't know how that ties into the legal issues and stuff like that. We'll look into that, but that's something to think about anyway. But the other thing is the storage shack, if we do want to tear that down, I was talking to somebody and they told me, actually it was my wife, Tony says, you know, she's on the planning commission for North Fork, or the village, North Fork. And she said we had a building in town that they wanted torn down, and a recycle company comes out and they do it for free because they get all the stuff out of the building, or they do it relatively for free. So that's something to think about if we go that route anyway. I forgot to mention that. The next thing is the road and parking lot grading. That's kind of a work in progress, maybe. I know Veronica Valley had a load of gravel dumped for Scott to spread out in Veronica Valley. And the same thing I think is going to happen with Myles Kimmerly. I hope that's going to happen. Is that true, Scott, or do we have to request that again?
That's the plan, yeah. Yep.
Okay. Can I leave that in your hands to make sure that happens? Because I think that was one of the things when I first went there, I thought, oh, this road and the parking lot, they have holes in it and needs to be just smoothed over. What bothers me is if the road commission has all this grading equipment, it seems like they would come out and do the whole thing for us. Or they're all part of the same government entity. It's confusing to me why the road commission just dumps the gravel and then Scott has to spread it with front loader or whatever he does it with. And it's not the proper equipment. It doesn't do quite the job that it should maybe. But I don't know if that's true or not because I haven't seen the final result.
Have we ever asked them? John?
They've graded miles for me. They brought out a road grader, graded that back parking lot. Yeah, I don't know how much maintenance they do for us. It's worth the question. They'll bill us for it, but
Yeah.
and it's not very expensive. I think the gravel at Veronica was $800 or something, and that was, I don't know, maybe 60 yards of gravel. And Elmer's probably would have charged us $5,000. So,
Are you serious?
yeah, they were quite expensive.
Yes. Well, we should be pleased, but I don't know. I don't know the inner workings, but it just seems like, you know, if you're going to do it, you want to do it properly and do it well. And, you know, there's ways to fill a hole in, and there's ways to fill a hole in, but I don't know. Any comments on that? Okay, we're on to number 3. And these are just briefly, I'll mention these. The paved loop trail, I want to show you a picture of that. And get a better picture than that, I think.
And is this proposed? Don, is this proposed paved trail?
Yeah, this is the proposed loop trail, paved, apparently paved. In one part, it doesn't mention paved. In the 5-year planning and rec, it doesn't mention paved, but it does in other places somewhere on the report. And I think Steve mentioned it to be paved, right?
Yeah, it is a pay, that was the plan.
But it's this, I lost my arrow on this one, sorry. But I can make it bigger, but on my little square here for plus sign, it's this red dotted thing that goes around. This is one way it could go. Oops. But here it is, right here on smaller. The other way, it could go out here along the fence line down here. There's another one. It says 1 mile paved trail loop. It says right on here, a paved trail loop right here along the fence line. Steve and I were talking about this yesterday, and this causes issues with the neighbors and dogs barking. So I think that's why they moved it in here. And it's something to think about down the line.
What's the
Estimated the
distance?
cost of this, it's $500,000 to do this. Well, I don't think it's a big ticket item for us today. So if anybody wants to talk about it further, we can. But I don't know. I'm not sure about the value of it given that price. But Steve,
Rick, you had a question?
What's that?
Did you have a question on that trail?
Well, I know the outside, you said a mile. What's the red one? What's the distance of the red one you got there? Is that about a half mile?
I would guess 3/4 of a mile with the dotted red. What we got, when Gosling Zubek was working with us with the plan for Veronica Valley, they spent a little bit of time with Myles and this plan with some input from the committee and the commission when we were doing the 5-year plan. Gosling also helped us with the 5-year plan. So we got a little bit of extra design consideration from them, which is what's up on the screen right now. The dotted red line was somewhat of a compromise. If we put the walking trail right out to the edge of the property, real close to the neighbors there, and has potential of disturbing the animals and dogs and whatnot in that area. So I believe that's why the dotted line got moved. There's a good potential we can do that dotted line and not have to move the driving range. It just was a way to think about that trail. And the reason the trail came up is it was one of the items that was on consideration for Myles Kimmerly, I think going back 10 years. The idea of having a walking trail in that lower area was very high, had a very high interest. And actually the commission voted to have the committee go ahead and figure out our next step with moving forward with the walking trail in that portion of Myles. That was actually number 1 on the list, and the committee had to go ahead to figure out the next steps to approach that. Don got some numbers from Tart Trail, and I think they couldn't be any higher than what he got. I have a hunch that having this installed could be a lot less than the numbers he mentioned just a minute ago. But the way it sits, we could peck away at it a chunk at a time, so to speak, and get several little walking loops out of it and stretch it out over a decade if we had to piecemeal putting a walking trail in this part of the park But anyway, um, the commission thought enough of it to give the committee the go-ahead to look into it.
What was the community input on this? Was that high on the list when the community was surveyed?
During the 5-year plan, I think that surfaced for this 5-year plan, and I think it surfaced for the previous 5-year plan. And we had a design done, actually my son did that when he worked for Leah. He's with Mansfield now. But we just, our goal at that point in time was to get an actual plan that was professionally rendered for each park. That was one of our main goals when we started 20 years ago. And we do now have a professionally rendered plan for all 3 of our parks. And this is the one that was done for Myles. Since then, with looking through Gosling's lens and talking about our ball fields, the ball fields you see on the screen right there are very large. The one on the left is like a high school independent league size, and the other one's pony league size. In reality, this park serves a public that does little league, so the ball fields we have right now are the right size, and we would modify this plan with respect to that. But anyway, this was a starting point. Gosling got us a little farther along. We have some, we tweaked the walking trail, we tweaked the ball fields. We're looking at pickleball versus extra tennis. So, you know, we've been tweaking on it, but you know, like it says there, it's a conceptual plan, and we as a committee can work with it, tweak it. We've got the Gosling rendition, and I guess one of the things we could think about doing is, do we need to go to another step of planning with this park instead of kind of freelancing? Do we need to say hire a Gosling Zubek or a similar company to flesh out where we go with this park with a plan? That's a concept that we could bump around. And do we need to do that? The north field was going to be used by the Red Lake schools to build tennis courts. It's not happening. So now we've got the north field unoccupied now, and the guy that was renting it canceled his lease. I believe he sold his property or something like that. So we've got the north field, we've got the 4-H area. So we've got some pieces here that we're working with, and it's conceptual, and we just need to decide how to move forward with what. And that's kind of the overview with regard to the conceptual plans for this park.
Yeah, I put this up mainly because it shows this 1-mile paved loop trail here. It comes along the fence. It shows a little better than the other diagram, but it does show it. It's confusing because it shows a lot of things, and it's hard to know. Like Steve says, what's real, what's planned in the future, what's existing, and whatnot. But if we go over this, and Steve's explained it all to me, which I appreciate, so I understand it now, but it's confusing. Like to correct for what's here and what's not here is a little more difficult, I'm sure. But anyway, that's that. I thought about this. I think the paved 1-mile trail is kind of a nice thing, but then I think we do all this, and all that expense, will it be used? And I wonder, and I don't know. I would hope so. That's why I would ask about the community, that they think this is a top priority, because they want something to walk on that's safer than the road on the shoulder. Because we don't have sidewalks out here, we just have shoulders that are on roads, and it's not quite as safe as it could be for especially older people or younger people, kids in that. But if you put this it's in, and we mentioned the other day, there might be rollerblading on it, but I can see kids with bicycles or riding their bicycles on it, stuff like that.
I don't think we'll allow bicycles
How about a tricycle?
offhand. I don't know.
Yeah,
Well,
probably,
it's something we'd have to decide.
yeah, you don't want people racing, you don't want a road bike going on this.
There's a lot of places for bicycles.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
We don't need to provide a bicycle trail. We need to provide a walking trail, in my mind.
So this is,
I'm just, that's an opinion.
yeah, the same thing is,
I'm all for bicycles. I don't understand what the problem is against bikes. They're not gonna be like guys riding their, race bikes around there going 100 miles an hour or anything. It's gonna be kids on bikes while
yeah,
their
I think I'm.
brothers are playing soccer and stuff like that.
Sure.
And, don't make problems where there aren't any.
Yeah, I agree with that, yeah. Okay. Anyway, that's enough for the paved loop trail, but the equestrian area, I put that on actually because Lana had horses in that, and I thought she might have some input into it, but she's not going to be with us, so I can almost skip that, except I will just mention about it and show you that this is the area for the horse net, and it's just an area that's not being utilized. The whole north part of the road really is not utilized much at all. So we have to think about that in the future. What opportunities do we have here? Do we revitalize this? Is this another tear down operation down the line? I'm not saying we should now or anything like that. Just we have to keep it in mind. That's all.
That area is the 4-H area.
Yes.
So it's designated 4-H area. So we're connected to the 4-H with that area. Scott, I don't know what the usage is right now. Can you kind of let us tell us?
Almost done.
We're going to check.
4-H had a llama show there 2 years ago, and that's about it. They don't ever use it.
But you'll have to check into the feasibility.
Right, yeah.
I had mentioned before the meeting that it would be a good idea to get some input from our 4-H director, Jen Berkey. She would be more than happy to discuss the 4-H park area with this committee.
Her name is Jan Murphy.
Jennifer Berkey.
Okay. Did you want me to give touch bases with her, Laura?
I can give her a call for you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. The more we do, though, we'll do something hopefully right. Okay, the last thing we're going to talk about today, because we're running a little late here, is the dog park. And I only put that on because I thought that was kind of something that we could consider, because it's not a big ticket item maybe, but maybe it is. Where they recommended putting the dog park was right in here, up the way at the north end. And like Steve and I were talking about that yesterday, and we said, whoa, this is close to some houses up here, and maybe that's not good. And if they have horses over here, maybe that's not good. But they don't have horses over here. But I looked into the cost of this is 1.3 acres in here. And the fence that with a chain link fence came out to be almost $5,000 just to put a fence up around that. And something I picked up off the internet. I don't know if that's high or low or what, but I don't know if a dog park's a good place to have it there or not. People come with their dog, that maybe they want to walk on this path. Maybe they want to walk on the Patrick Hobbins Trail. So do we have a place over here for the dog park? Well, we don't. So it has to be across the road. So, I mean, would people use a dog park at this park? I don't know. I don't have a feel for that at all. I don't have a dog either, but I like dogs. Anybody have a thought on that? No. Laura, do you have a thought?
We've
Go ahead, Steve.
batted the dog park idea around quite a bit. we have had members on the commission that were pretty highly in favor of the concept. It's an interesting concept. It's kind of hard to figure out where to put a dog park, number one. Number two, you've got to go through the hoops of, how do you run it? Who uses it? Who polices it? And does it fit into our liability structure and our risk management structure? And there's a lot of hurdles to it. And I don't know, it's,
I thought there's a very social aspect to the dog park where the dogs come and they socialize, but the people that own the dogs, they socialize. So I can see that. But I'm used to dog parks in a city or suburban atmosphere, not in a country atmosphere. So I question whether if we put a dog park in at whatever expense, if it would be utilized. And I may be dead wrong about that, but that's just my gut feeling about it.
The only thing I would remark on is that because of where I live, I will note that the dog park that runs close to the church on Bay Street at the corner of Grandview Parkway and Division is always busy. So maybe somebody could contact the city as to any kind of specifics, and then maybe you could hold a meeting to ask for public input if you wanted to move forward, just to see if there is interest.
Oh, I think that's a good idea. Yeah, that's my point exactly. A dog park in Traverse City, I go by them and I say, hell yeah, they're utilized a lot because they don't have the running space for the dog, and it's a social thing too. But out
The
at
one in Garfield Township Park over on Green Hill Road, or whatever that is, that's always busy as well.
Yeah.
That's rural.
where is that, Scott?
East Silver Lake Road,
Yes, yeah.
right by the fire barn there, just down from Green Hill.
Okay, anything else about the dog park? Okay. Anything else anybody wants to mention? Just one more thing. Yeah, I forgot. I added something on. I forgot to mention it, but I'll just talk about it anyway. The golf driving range. Steve and I mentioned it yesterday. Where it is here. Sorry about that. It popped up there. The driving range is here now, and the thought is maybe with this existing open field, it could be really located over here. But that's just something to think about in the future. I just want to mention, we'll talk about it later though. If nothing else, we'll just go to a public comment, I guess. Huh?
The number to call in for public comment, again, is 231-256-8109.
Can we go to board member comments? And if there's a phone call, we'll take it, interrupt.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any board member comments?
Yes, I will, if you want, on the dog park there, I'm always at the courthouse in Traverse. I can run over to the city building and probably talk to, someone at the city there about the legal aspects and everything, and what they did with their park.
So there seems to be general support for the dog park. I have one comment. I want to thank everybody for participating today and being here. I appreciate it. This is the first meeting of this committee this year, and I don't want to burden us, but I think we should meet frequently. I'll figure out when the next one should be. We'll talk about it and go from there. How we doing, Laura?
I don't think anyone's watching.
Okay, I have a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Thank you, T. Second. I'll second. Do we have to vote?
No, you can just adjourn it.
Okay, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. Thank you, Laurel.
Thanks,
You're
Don.
welcome.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Rick,
Take care.
Scott.